One of South Africa's most pressing socio-economic challenges is unemployment. In the second quarter of 2023, it's estimated that approximately 7 million people are unemployed. Persistent load shedding, high inflation and interest rates have seen companies streamlining operations in the labour market. However, as the population soars, how do we then address unemployment? Well, let's chat to Professor Khumbulani Mpofu, Director at the Institute for the Future of Work. Professor, good evening. Thanks for speaking to us. Let's talk about the Institute of Future of Work. Talk to us about your institute.
Good evening, Hugo. Good evening to your listeners. We have established the Institute of the Future of Work as a platform for us to transform how education is done. We've been working on this for the past over 10 years, pivoting around entrepreneurship and how we can focus on the people. And clearly, with South Africa having the highest unemployment rate that is officially recorded by the global bodies, it is important for us to think in unconventional ways about how we can solve the unemployment problems. And the Institute of the Future of Work is geared to do precisely that by working on technologies that will assist us to make a better contribution to how people get employed and get around with their lives.
Now, considering the remarkable 19.8% growth in South Africa's population, what are the key challenges this rapid population increase poses for the country, particularly in terms of employment and social services?
So there's going to be definitely tremendous pressure on delivering services in terms of the creation of employment, and also at the same time with various sectors not doing that well at this time, we need to be thinking about how we can work with new technologies to create new jobs. And at the Institute of the Future of Work, we have been working very hard at how we can, on one hand, equip young people to participate in entrepreneurial pursuits with like-minded industrial partners who can then give them opportunities to start up and to create startups that can create opportunities for themselves as unemployed young people, but also at the same time for other unemployed young people. And so the view that jobs are strictly going to be created by somebody who comes from somewhere else is a view that is not going to take us anywhere. And with the dialogue that is coming up in these few days, the idea is that we bring parties around the room, around on various platforms from various sectors to have discussions about what can we do to ensure that people are served and people are provided with the opportunities that they need, especially the young people who are disenfranchised at this stage and absolutely frustrated with the state of the economy, the state of various unavailability of opportunities for them to get employed even when they get qualifications. But the moment we add the entrepreneurial aspect, this will help us to ensure that young people do create those job opportunities that are aligned to the technologies that are coming up currently.
Now, South Africa's unemployment rate has been a persistent challenge. How is this population growth affecting the unemployment rate, and what strategies are needed to address the rising joblessness in the country? And I raise this question on the back of a conversation, certainly a clip that we saw moments ago where Labour Minister Thulas Nxesi was speaking to residents in Mitchell's Plain, and they walked out of a conversation with him. And one of the reasons they walked out is the gentleman said that their children are unemployed. They can't find formal employment. The alternative that employment that exists is provided by gangsters. So they can't get a job, and there's an alternative, and that alternative, unfortunately, is illegal in many regards. How do we protect our children from this?
So I think the reality is that I think on one hand, we need to recognize that in all our communities, we do have specific challenges. And I think all of us will accept that currently one of the greatest challenges we have is the climate change crisis. And with this climate change crisis, we need to change the way we do things. And you need science, which is developed by young people, which is developed by our universities, which is developed by our science councils, and how we can convert that into businesses. Let me give you a simple example about the mines, especially the mines that have got to the end of their life and there's nothing happening on those mines. there are conversations that we're having around how do we create new economies from these mines. Obviously, the minerals are no longer the main source of activity, and most of the time you end up with deserted mining towns. But there is an opportunity for us to create biomass, especially with the energy crisis that we have in the country. There are scientific efforts that we're involved in with European institutions whereby we are looking at creating biomass in sustainable ways and harvesting that biomass to create energy, which will not just supply big power stations, but energy that is compacted into small pellets that can be utilized to, on one hand, provide energy in homes, but also through thermoelectric generation technologies, provide lighting for young people to be able to read and better their lives. So if we think about this from a value chain perspective, then we'll be able to create opportunities along the value chain. So yes, of course, there's the part where the mines that I'm speaking about are open-ended, and there's nothing happening there at this stage. There's no activity because the people who wanted the minerals have left. But if we grow vegetation that creates biomass, then we convert that biomass into some forms of pellets that can be heated, and everybody needs to cook. But this heating of this material in sustainable ways that do not damage the climate, focused on the people in these communities and creating those value chains to provide opportunities for frustrated young people, as we clearly had in the Northern Cape. And there in the Northern Cape, we know as well that there are vast amounts of land that are not being utilized, that are not good for agriculture. But through these approaches, we can actually rehabilitate those lands while we're creating biomass that can give us energy, deal with some of the challenges that the young people are facing, but create employment opportunities. So the way we need to think about our challenges, I think, needs to be contextualized to where the challenges are, what are the things that are immediately available to the communities, and work with technologies that we're developing to solve those problems. And definitely, young people don't have to go and join the gangsters.
So here in line two issues that we need to look at. And the first issue is, what is the frequency of entrepreneurs, right? How many, I mean, it's like football players, right? Not all of us are gifted to be football players. What is the percentage of entrepreneurs in your own experience? I mean, how many young people come to you with an idea and you immediately say, brilliant, you've got the entrepreneurial spirit, or you've got capacity? Because many of us want to be entrepreneurs, but I think globally they talk about less than 1% or a very small fraction of natural entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And I concur with you that not everyone is going to be an entrepreneur. And we have similar experiences. I mean, as we're establishing the Institute of the Future of Work, we've established an incubator, and we've got several young people who have come through interested in incubation. But incubation is not a walk in the park, right? And not everyone who will come there will ultimately succeed. Some will not make it along the way, but there are skills that you get from the process. Those skills, you can still go and utilize them, either working at a startup or go to other organizations and function in roles that you wouldn't have functioned in without that experience from these incubation programs. And I've got quite a number of examples where we've got young people who have come in, they wanted to be incubated, a job opportunity came up, and because of other circumstances, they left and went for the job opportunity. But I've also got entrepreneurs who have stayed, job opportunities have come, and they've said, no, I've got an entrepreneurial path. And for me, I think what is important is that the state, the industry, and this is why we have the I4, need to come together, work with one another to support these kind of young people, because these are the young people that we need. And one person can create, at this stage, we've got young people who have created more than 30 jobs for 30 other young people. So if these young people are properly supported, then through this Institute of the Future of Work, we are going to be running an accelerator where these young people can then be helped to tap into opportunities like the African Free Trade Continental Agreement, because the problems that we have here are also problems that are there in the continent. So when we think about solving problems here and creating jobs, we also need to think about how do we leverage the opportunities that are provided for by these continental agreements, by global agreements like the European projects that we're working in, where we are also getting exposed to challenges in other parts of the globe, because those become channels to create jobs that are sustainable and that will generate other jobs and motivate other young people to come and be entrepreneurial.
Now, you've said something there just now, and you talked about a number of departments and the need to come together because the Institute of the Future of Work certainly has some solutions, right? Now, when we talk about mines,
Yes.
we in the same breath are thinking about Zama-Zamas and the turmoil that they're causing in and around South Africa. And many of these areas could be dealt with by harnessing of some of the skills that speak towards biomass, as you've indicated moments ago. So let's talk about your relationship with various government departments. I mean, you're talking about Department of Mines, Mineral Resources, Department of Basic Education. Is the Department of Basic Education working with you to prepare these young people with the skill set that allows them to complete school? Once they complete school, they don't have to necessarily look for a job, because the skill set that you speak of and the work that the Institute of the Future of Work is doing is already given to them, or they already have that skill set.
Yes. So at this stage, we don't have concrete relationships, but I must be quick to say that we are working with the high school sector. We've got platforms where we train young people through gamified learning to understand the world of the fourth industrial revolution, right? Because I think all of us, your listeners included, we have grown up playing games, and through these games we've learned a lot of things. Suddenly when we become adults, we forget that we grew up playing games, and we learned how to do things through playing games, right? And so we've got gamified learning approaches that educate young people, not just young people, by the way, because even us as adults enjoy, learning through gaming, and you see this even with when you go to places where you've got these headsets that people put on, and they can either play and dance and do many other things. But technology can be utilized through gamified approaches to help people understand the impact of the technology they implement, because these kind of games, they speak to sustainability, they speak to growth, they speak to other future viability aspects that you would find in a normal business. But it's gamified, and children enjoy playing the game, but in the process, they learn about what to do. So we are involved with higher education schools that we have around us, but definitely if there are people from the basic education department, they're welcome to engage us, because we believe that this entrepreneurship journey needs to start even way before the children get out of high school or even primary school, because already some of that talent is already there, and the challenge is that it's not being tapped into, and as a result, those solutions lie idle, and we cry about the unemployment rate when we can tap some of those solutions and make use of them and change the destiny of not just our young people, but the country at large.
Now, with the increasing prevalence of robots and automation in the fourth industrial revolution, how do you see the workforce landscape changing in South Africa? I mean, what are the potential implications for future employment opportunities? And I'm not just talking about young people, but I'm also talking about those of us that aren't so young anymore. I mean, when we talk about AI, where is it going to be in the next 5 years? Am I going to be employable, or is it going to be the younger people that are more savvy that are likely to be employed?
So, Hugo, for me, I think this is a very interesting dimension of the conversation.
Professor, allow me to ask you to hold that thought. We are going to take a very short break. When we return, we continue this conversation. I'm currently speaking to Professor Khumbulani Mpofu from the Institute of the Future of Work. Professor, thanks for staying on the line. Now, just going back to the previous question before we took the break, with the increasing prevalence of robots and automation in the fourth industrial revolution, how do you see the workforce landscape changing in South Africa, and what are the potential implications for future employment opportunities?
I think I need to take a step back to emphasize that I'm a scientist who's a creationist, and the good book says that man was given dominion, right? And whatever we think about technology, whatever technology it is, at the core of it is man. And this is why now we speak about the Industry 5.0, right? We're running a conference in the next less than 2 weeks with global experts from around the world coming to discuss robotics, coming to discuss IoT. And one common point of precipitation of this conversation is the human in the loop. And even how we're designing and conceptualizing robots at the moment, the robot needs to be more conscious about the human being, even in a manufacturing setting. So the idea that, robots like we see in the movies as, popularized by Hollywood, that the robots are going to come and kick out everybody out of the factory is not a reality. The robots we are designing are actually more conscious of human beings than the ones that we know of that, from the past. So I think for me that is very important that we underline that. And then secondly, we understand the context we have. In South Africa, we have the highest unemployment rate on the planet, especially for those countries that have given over their data to the global bodies, right? It's a fact. We know that, right? So in our conceptualizing of what we want to do with technology, we continuously take that into cognizance because we know we need to deal with the unemployment rate. Because at the end of the day, these technologies need to work for people. The technologies need to serve people. People need to dominate, to have dominion over everything that is upon the surface of it. Obviously, not in a degrading way, not in an environmentally unfriendly way. Actually, with that also comes, the dominion comes with responsibility of stewardship on the planet. And this is why, even with this biomass approach, some people say, no, if you start creating biomass, you're going to burn, you're going to create carbon dioxide. But we understand that we are stewards of this world that we're living in. And even in these stoves that we're going to be creating, we've got sensors there that are detecting the amount of carbon that we're burning. And all those things in that value chain are job opportunities. So what I want to emphasize here is that I think it's important for us to always understand that when we design technologies, we're thinking about our context. At the Institute of the Future of Work, we're not going to be doing things that are unethical because it would be unethical for us to put machines everywhere where we actually need people to come and function. We're thinking about robotics and agriculture, but the point is not to eliminate people because we understand that people need means of livelihood. There will be roles that people need to play, and we need to deliberately ensure that we configure people into those roles. So there's responsibility, there's stewardship. It's not dominion for the sake of exploitation, like maybe was happening in the mines where, the mines have become problematic now. We need to solve the problems. But we're not going to sit and say, so-and-so did this bad to us. We need to say, okay, what are the solutions that we're putting on the table while we're solving the unemployment issues that we have? Because these mines, like you're saying, there's so many of them, creating problems because people are exploiting those opportunities without thinking about them in a sustainable way. But with what we're doing at the Institute of the Future of Work in a responsible way, we can rehabilitate these places. We can make these places work in a way that even the communities around there will not need to run away to other cities, but there will be opportunities that have been created through, a conversation around what do we do with this dying mining town? What are the potentials? How do we revive the land that has been destroyed? And so on and so forth. And absolutely, the dialogue that is coming up in the next week is an important part of making sure that people come and have conversations. So I want to, emphasize to your viewers, to your listeners, to come and participate with us at the dialogue. It's part of our stewardship, coming together, having this conversation, and taking time to make those decisions that ultimately will make a difference in the lives of the young people, and not forget the lives of the older people, because the older people, it's not about ageism, it's also about the stewardship of the older people. So everyone needs to be taken care of. But as we design technologies, we ask the questions, what are the needs? And then work from the needs to arrive where all of us will arrive at a better place and our livelihoods are improved. Thank you.
Professor Mpofu, the 22 census indicates changes in the population's education levels. Now, how does the distribution of education levels among various population groups in South Africa impact their access to job opportunities? And what measures do you think can be taken to address these disparities? And I pick up on the illustration you gave moments ago, which is that around robotics. Are we having robotics as readily available in urban South Africa as we are in rural South Africa, for instance?
So there are definitely, I think, applications of robotics that are there in the rural areas. Particularly, I think, even during the COVID period, we actually had collaborators who were working with us who where drones were being used to send messages in communities about the issue of the pandemic, and to educate the communities, because obviously because of the restrictions that were there, you couldn't have people maybe going door to door distributing leaflets in the fear of spreading the virus. But drones could do that, and this was in rural places. But I think we have not harnessed the potential and the capabilities. And I agree with you that we must not leave our rural schools and our rural communities behind in this, pursuit of these revolutions. And we don't just speak about this. Our mouths are where the work is. So the example of the biomass and the technology that we're developing around that is focused on these kind of communities. How do we develop these technologies? Because all of us cook, you may cook with an electric stove, you may cook with gas, you may cook with wood, but all of us cook. As you're solving that, as you're working with that cooking situation, introducing technology in a rural setup, how then do you also maybe generate electricity for them to be able to read? And this is why earlier on I spoke about the thermoelectric generator, which is a device that we're going to be utilizing with these cooking stoves, because there's a lot of heat that is dissipated. And that is technology that is relevant to these communities. But it's not just technology that is going to be dumped on them. It's technology that comes with value chains on how at each and every step of the way we can create opportunities for livelihoods with the relevant technology. Because it also won't help us to import technologies that are not really relevant to those communities and come and dump them on them. And when one small thing goes wrong, we need to, ask for somebody who comes from the other side of the world to come and intervene in that situation. That is also not responsible use of technology. That is also not ethical use of technology. We need to be ethical, and this is why it's important that the Institute of the Future of Work that we have established is really supported by all parties, so that at the end of the day, the discourse of our development, the discourse of our solving the challenges that our people are having are defined by us because we understand the context. It's not solutions that are being dumped on us.
Now, finally, in terms of addressing unemployment and adapting to technological advancements, what role can collaboration between universities, industries and government play in fostering innovation and economic growth? Are we seeing enough collaboration in South Africa?
So I think it's said to say that we're not seeing enough collaboration. I'm not going to beat about the bush, but I think the good thing is that those who have come around the table have come. For example, the Institute of the Future of Work, and this will be part of the dialogue conversations that we're going to be having next week, we have platforms. We've defined various labs that we need to establish, that speak to various industries. For example, we've got a blockchain research center that we are planning to establish, and we are inviting like-minded partners to come and participate in this technology hub, industry and government, because blockchain solutions will be utilized across these sectors, focused on the challenges that people have. We're also planning the cybersecurity innovation lab. That is also an important part about this digitized age. I think some of us are aware of some of the companies, even here locally, that couldn't operate for over 3 months. And I think the ruminants of these attacks are still on them, even up to this day. And the challenge is that we don't have infrastructure in the country that is dealing with these problems and solving these problems. So it's very important for us to think about participating in the dialogue, identifying where we can participate and work together along the lines, of course, of where the business is focused, and we will find solutions that are not just going to work for us, but will also work for the rest of the continent. I'm currently in Kigali, and here in Kigali, there's a lot of opportunities for us to make differences. And for me, it's about the people, yes, of South Africa, but more importantly, the people of the continent, because as we expand our service to the rest of the continent, we also solve the challenge of us having lesser jobs, because there are more jobs to be created by us expanding our services and taking them to the rest of the continent. So ideas around that and the AfriLab that we've been engaging here will not just work in one small context, but will work even for the broader continent, because that also provides even an even bigger market for entrepreneurs and for businesses that have been established in South Africa to participate in the opportunities provided for by the African Free Trade Continental Agreement.
Professor Khumbulani Mpofu, Director at the Institute for the Future of Work. Appreciate you unpacking those issues for us on News at Prime.